It looks like it's working. Well, how are you, all of you at Disciple Productions? I just wanted to say congratulations. 37 years ago, God decided to do something with my son Tom, Garth Hanselman, Gary Kurtz, Thomas Zadis, and John Dreyhaus. And it was all in the basement. You guys did such an amazing job with the equipment you had, and the leading of the Lord. You were about 19. A lot of good things came out of that ministry. I can remember the meeting when you guys invited Scott Ross to do his radio show from the basement. You had enough equipment to put it together. You guys always had the best equipment. And Scott was going to do a TV show. That was, you guys were instrumental in getting him moved on to Virginia Beach and the ministry he had with Pat Robertson, the 700 Club. He went on to interview kind of what you did, Tom, interviewing just everybody there was in Christian contemporary music. Yeah, I'll never forget, it started like 1976, July 4th, somewhere around there. I was in the back of the Catholic Church in Pomona, and I was just crying out to the Lord and saying, Lord, I'm doing everything they told me. Stand up, kneel down, confession, communion, but I'm still empty. That was my prayer. What is the problem? And he wasn't long after that Lonnie Sarah's mom said, I think you guys need to go to Marriage Encounter. So we did, and it was an amazing thing. The question they asked, they said, write some things you like about yourself and write some things you don't like about yourself. Well, I was full of myself, so I started writing, and I got bored doing that, so I said, began to write the things I didn't like, and it was like the Lord was just convicting me of my self-centeredness. And when I wrote just how selfish I was, the Spirit of God just poured into me, and I couldn't explain it. I began to weep uncontrollably, and it seemed like it was 5 minutes, and I don't know how long it was, but when that was over, it was like the Lord put a fire hose in me, in my mouth, and just flushed me out completely. I didn't realize what happened, and I had to ask a friend that was there, and he said, that sounds like you ought to talk to the Catholic Charismatics. So I did, and I found out that was the baptism in the Spirit, and never been the same since. And shortly after that, through God's providence, a young gentleman came to the door in Cologne, actually where we lived, and he had children's Bibles. And I invited him in, and we began to talk, and he said, yeah, he said he had been involved in a rock and roll band called Leonard Skinner. And he said, it was killing me, and he said, I had to get out. And it wasn't long after that the plane with the members of the band just crashed, and he would have been one of them that died, but God spared his life, and it's amazing how God moves. And like Tom was 14 years old, and he remembered that meeting with Ed King, the bass player, and Ed King was the one who wrote the lick for the beginning of Sweet Home Alabama. And just about everybody knows that song. So at age 14, he remembered he wanted to get in radio, so he calls up Ed King and interviews him. Ed King was drying out in Cape May Courthouse, where his wife's father was a Seventh-day Adventist pastor. So he went over to their home and did the interview, and that began Disciple Productions. And it's a great interview. I just wish we had it. And Tom and Gary and Garth moved on to different venues of interviewing contemporary Christian artists. I mean, Tom could give you the list, but Ed was a big one. Kerry Livgren, Dust in the Wind. There's probably so many. But I just wanted to say, you guys have gone your separate ways, and you're all still involved in loving the Lord. That's the important thing. You've never forgotten your first love. And that's key, because a lot of things can distract us. So I just want to say a blessing over each one of you. Father God, I just ask you to bless them, smile upon them, let their ministry continue for you. You know, Gary's doing a work in Texas. Garth is doing, has a church in Egg Harbor City. I'm not sure what Tom Mazetis is doing, but not sure what John Dreyhouse is doing. I'm sure you guys are still totally in love with Jesus. So God bless you. And it's been a wild ride, but that was the beginning roots of Disciple Production. Oh, the other interesting thing was the concert with Larry Norman. That was a big one over in Holy Spirit High School. Those people probably never heard of Larry Norman. Well, a lot of them that came out, and I dragged my son Ron. He was like, I don't know, 12 or 14, something like that. And forgive me, Ron, for dragging you to some of these places. I was a little fanatical in those days, but that's where we got to meet Larry Norman, and we actually had dinner with him the evening after the concert. Billy Romansky and Greg Diebert, they had a cool little band, and they led. They were the lead-off band before Larry came out to play. So that was interesting. Then you guys did a concert at Ocean City Music Pier. That was interesting. Just so many things, but God is amazing. He's still moving in your lives, and I just ask Him to continue to bless each one of you. So God bless, and sorry I couldn't be there, but that's a long flight. God bless you guys. Bye-bye.